Welcome back to our ECS and WordPress setup series. My name is Oluwatosin Oyekomi. In this third part of the CSN demo, we'll be focusing on securing a connection between our ECS service to our MySQL RDS database. Okay, before we start creating a new security group for the RDS database, let's quickly review the security group we previously set up, named CSN SG. Like we can see, this security group allows traffic on port 80 and port 443 as inbound routes, enabling HTTP and HTTPS traffic to our load balancer. Just a quick reminder, if anyone hasn't enabled this port, please do so now. Without this, the load balancer won't be able to serve traffic over HTTPS, which could cause issue when trying to load your secure website in the browser. Now, let us move on to creating a dedicated security group for our RDS database. This security group will ensure that only our ECS service or our application load balancer can access the database. So let us go up and search for the security group. Let us create a new security group. Let's go to the top. Let's give our security group a name. Let's give it RDS SG. Let's copy the same name and put in the description. Let's scroll down. In the VPC, let us select the CSN demo VPC, which is the dedicated VPC we created for this WordPress site. So let's select CSN demo VPC. Let's scroll down. Now let's go to the inbound rule for the RDS SG security group. So let's type in MySQL. By default, it has picked the port range. And for the source, we are going to allow our CSN SG to connect to this particular database. So let's click on CSN SG for secure connection. So let's go down and create our security group. Let's go back to our security group and ensure that our RDS security group is created. Now we can see we have our RDS security group created. To ensure that our MySQL database is deployed in the private subnets, we need to create a DB subnet group. This will let us specify which subnet RDS should use. Now let us move on to the RDS dashboard, where we will configure the database subnet group. This ensures our database is deployed securely in the private subnet. So let us navigate to RDS dashboard. Now at the left hand side, let us click on subgroup. Let's create a new subgroup. Like we can see, we have a default VPC subgroup, but let's create a new one that is secure in a private subnet. Let's give the subnet group a name. Let's give it secure subnet. Let's copy the same name and put in the description. Let's scroll down. Now for the VPC, let's click on the drop down and select the CSN demo VPC, the one we created for this WordPress site. We have about 5 availability zones. Let's leave it and go back to the subnet. So for the subnet, we can see we are having 2 availability zones just for our VPC, and we don't know the one that is private and public. So let's come back to security group and come back to the subnet. To know the one that is private, like we can see, we have the public and we have the private. let's see, the private is the one that ends with 90 and 1D. So let's go back to the RDS 90 and 1D. So this is private subnet and this is also private subnet. This is where we want to create our RDS. So let's come down and create. Now the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to deploy the MySQL RDS instance within the VPC using the subnet group and the security group we just created. This will be the backend database for our WordPress application. So let's go to database. Let's create database. Let's select the standard create. Let's come down and select MySQL. Let's go down. For the engine version, let's just leave it as the latest. For the templates, we are going to be choosing free tier. So let's click on free tier. So for the database name, let's just leave it as default because this is not actually the name we are going to be using to connect to our database. You can just leave it as the database one. Now the master username, don't forget this, it is admin. So for the credential management, we have manage in AWS secret manager, and that is the most secure. And we also have the self manage. Let's use the self manage just for this particular demo, but the most secure way to secure your credential is to use the AWS secret manager. So for the password, let's auto generate our password. Let's go down. For the DB type, let's select DB3 micro. For the storage, we can either select GP3 or GB2. For the storage, I will select 10 just for this particular demo. Let's come down. Let's leave it as default. For the VPC, let's scroll down and select CSN demo VPC, which is the VPC we created for this WordPress site. Let's scroll down. For the subnet group, that's the DB subnet group, you can see by default it has picked the CSN DB secure subnet that we created. So let's continue. Like, let's see, it is asking public access, we are saying no. So the VPC security group, like I said, we are going to be selecting the RDS security group that we created just for this particular demo, because we don't want the outside world to connect to our database. So the availability zones, like we can see, we have only 2 availability zones. So let's leave it, and it's going to choose no preference, anyone for us. So let's come down, leave every other thing as default. So database authentication, we can just use password authentication, but the best way to secure is using IAM database authentication. So let's come to additional configuration. So we are going to give our database a name, and this is the name we are going to be using to connect to our database. So let's give it WordPress DB. Let's leave every other thing as default. Let's go down and create our database. Like you can see, it is creating our database. Let's wait for it until it is provisioned. Okay, now that our database has been provisioned and it is available, let's go to the top and view our connection detail. So I want to tell you this, that the moment you refresh this particular page, this connection detail is going to go away. So it is necessary you copy these credentials and store it in a secure place, because you are going to use it in your ECS task definition for connection to your database. So let's copy this. Now I have copied my credentials, that's my master password and my endpoints, into my notepad. You can do the same thing. So let's close this page. Now with the database ready, we are going to update our ECS task definition so that our WordPress can connect to the new MySQL instance. So let us navigate to the ECS console and select our task definition and create a revision of our task definition. So let us go to our task definition. Let's select our task definition. Now at the right hand side, we can see create a new revision. So we are going to create a new revision of our task definition. So let's click on create new revision. So we can see the revision we have is revision 1, and the name of our task definition is CSN task TD. So let's come down. We are still using AWS Fargate, and the CPU we are still maintaining 0.5 and 1 GB, and we are still maintaining our task role, and the container we are still maintaining WordPress Docker image. So where we are going to modify, let me quickly take us there, is our environment variable. We are going to be adding environment variable to our task definition. So if we navigate to the WordPress Docker image and come down, you will see the credentials you need for your database connection to your WordPress. So the first thing is your WordPress database host. So let's copy this and come back to our task definition and add environment variable. So let's add this key, which is WordPress database host, and the value. You come to your credentials, you copy your connection string, you come back to your task definition and you paste it there. You add another environment variable, you come back to your WordPress, you copy the name, you come back to your task definition, you paste it there, and you can remember that the DB user is admin. So let's go back to the WordPress Docker image. So the WordPress database password, let's copy this and go back to our task definition. Let's add another environment variable. Let's paste the WordPress DB password. You come back to your where you save your password, you copy your password and you paste it in the value, and you add another variable, which is your database name. Copy this, come to your task definition. Let's come down. Let's leave every other thing as default. Let us create a new version, a new revision of our task definition. Now we have a new revision of our task definition, which is CSN task TD2. So it is time for us to update the ECS service. So let us navigate to the ECS service. Let's go back to our cluster. Let's click on CSN cluster. Let's come back to our service and click on CSN WordPress service. Let's come up. Let's close this. Let's also close this. Now we can see in our service, we can see update service. So let us click on update service. It's asking us, we can see it's asking us the family, that's the task definition, and the revision is one that is currently in use. So let us select the latest. Let's leave the desired task to be 1. Let's come down. Every other thing as default. Let's update our service. Once you update the service, ECS will begin a rolling update. So let us go to our WordPress site. Let us refresh this and continue. Now, it said if you need to reset any of the configuration item in this file, please delete the first and try to reinstall now. So let's reinstall and let's continue. And we can see our database is connected to our WordPress. So let's copy the password. Let's save it. Let's give our site a name. CSN demo. Let's give it a username. Let's just give it CSN. We've copied the password. Let's give a random email address, csn@gmail.com. So let us install WordPress. Now it's asking us to log in. So our username is CSN and our password, let's paste it and let us log in. Wow, and there you have it. Thank you for following along, and now you can see, you can visit your site. We are connected. You can see CSN demo, and we are already connected to our database. This is cybersport.com.ng.